Hey guys, welcome back. So now I want to get into another what if, to where in this case we're getting into the what if Infinity Dark Reign one shot, to where we see the events of both Dark Reign and Siege go a bit differently, with Norman Osborn stealing the Infinity Gauntlet rather than becoming the Iron Patriot. So let's get into it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch your spills every week, and don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squad up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so before we jump in, first I want to say that this takes place during the events of Siege more so than Dark Reign, but even with doing so, it leans heavily into the turn of power over to Norman Osborn, which had taken place in Dark Reign, which I guess is pretty obvious just off of the title. But for anyone who's not so familiar with the event, all you really need to know is that Dark Reign is the aftermath of Secret Invasion, to where towards the end of the Skrull invasion, Tony Stark, who was director of S.H.I.E.L.D., he got hacked, turning the world's defenses over to the Skrulls. But towards the end of the event, when it came down to killing the Skrull Queen and ending everything, just before the heroes could wrap everything up, Norman Osborn stepped in live in front of the news, in front of the world, and he killed the Skrull Queen. But practically with him stealing the credit and winning the trust of the world, along with being endorsed by the president, he was then given all the authority and resources that were once owned by Tony Stark, the previous director of S.H.I.E.L.D., and all of that just rolled over into the New World peacekeeping organization, Hammer, which then from there led Osborn to put together a new team of Avengers, where he gave Scorpion the Venom symbiote and made him Spider-Man. He took Daken, the son of Wolverine, and just made him Wolverine. He brought in Ares, the Sentry, Bullseye became Hawkeye, and Moonstone became Miss Marvel. And as this reign had went originally, it ended for Osborn with the siege on Asgard. And that's where this what if story really kicks in, because it goes on to say, like, what if it didn't end there? Like, what if Osborn had made a decision prior that would have completely turned the events within Siege that effectively ended Dark Reign, which were a number of things for the most part, but the biggest thing was definitely the Sentry losing control and releasing the Void. And with this one, we essentially see Norman Osborn head into Siege with a different approach, which then causes the events of Siege to play out very differently. Because when we first jump in, we start off within the childhood of Norman Osborn, to where in his case we see his father, Anderson Osborn, who's yelling at him for taking his tools. And with this starting off this way, it's really leaning into the abusive childhood that Norman had to endure, kind of like what we were shown back in Spectacular Spider-Man Annual Issue 14 back in 1994, when Peter had came across this detailed record of the Osborn family tree. And it was kind of weird at the time with him virtually stepping into the shoes of a younger Norman and virtually experiencing his abusive childhood, which at the time also went on to express why Norman Osborn had become so dark at a young age. But with this what if story picking up with Anderson Osborn, who's looking for this younger Norman and chasing him down with his belt, but instead of him finding Norman, he's whisked off, and before you know it, he's right in the middle of the siege on Asgard. And at this point, it's pretty close to the time where the Sentry loses it and the Void just goes ham. But before that even happens, the Sentry is zapped away, and it's here where we see that that was done by Norman Osborn, who has the Infinity Gauntlet. And I know right away, it's like boom in your face. But if you've never seen this before, trust me, it's gonna make sense. But as far as how this turned the tide, for one, the Void was no longer an issue, which is really the biggest difference right there. But in this case, it didn't even get close to that, because as soon as Norman saw the Sentry getting out of hand, he just got rid of him. And aside from that, Daken, Moonstone, and all the other Dark Avengers, they had just ran through a number of the heroes until Norman just scattered whoever was left across Oklahoma. But with the scene that's take place, and also with Norman's father here watching the whole thing, it's here we also come to find out that this whole thing was just a reenactment that Norman had put on for his father to show him how much he had accomplished. But for everyone else who's here within Siege, they really relived it again and died again, and Norman ran the whole thing back just to show his father the man he had become. But as soon as Siege is over, Norman snaps the Dark Avengers back to their headquarters, and he takes a moment alone with his father to assure him that he is the adult version of that child that he would abuse, who he also told would be nothing. And he tells his father, like, look at me now, I'm ruler of all that there is, was, and there ever will be. But even with his father seeing this, he still doesn't believe that is him. And he tells Norman, my son was weak, he was good for nothing. And right away, Norman snaps the two of them over to New York in present day, of which Norman is recreated into the throne city of the new Osborn Empire. But with showing this to his father of course is asking him like how is this even possible? And really it's from here that we get the story of when exactly things took a turn from the history that we had known with Norman's rise to power in the beginning of Dark Reign. And with seeing this, it really builds directly off of Norman's ambitions to obtain power, and also where that ambition had really come from. But in this case, where things went differently, after Secret Invasion, once Norman had access to all the heroes' secret files, but instead of just taking Tony's armor, he went after the gauntlet. Because after browsing through the heroes' archives, he discovered all the powerful trinkets that the heroes try to hide from the villains, and upon his discovery, he found the Infinity Gauntlet. And with finding the gauntlet, he assembled an army of villains to hunt down the different heroes who each had an Infinity Gem in their possession. And because of Norman Osborn's high intellect, he was able to control and use the Infinity Gauntlet in a number of ways. And with having this power, his new identity would then become the Goblin King. And within his rise to power, the heroes that remained after Siege, or those who had survived, they had fought among themselves, with none of them being able to overthrow the Goblin King, and in the case of any intervention, which was attempted from the deepest parts of space, they had no chance in stopping him either. But with Norman showing all of this to his father Amberson, in response he told Norman like, okay, so what now? Because the Osborn family comes from a long line of inventors. And with his father seeing this, he tells Norman like he's invented nothing here but tyranny. Which, for the record, as far as Norman's father, this is where a lot of the bitterness and abusiveness comes from. Because for Amberson, he inherited the Osborn wealth from his grandfather. But in his case, he lost more money than what he made for the family. And part of that had to do with one of his inventions being stolen. But for the most part, he was the type to blame someone else for his failures. And as a result, he would often take out that abuse on his wife and his son Norman. But then it's here where he tells Norman that he's created nothing, where Norman then tells him like, au contraire, let me show you my greatest creation. And it's here where Norman takes his father to the death of Gwen Stacy. Now this one's messed up. And so now if you never read this, like you might think you know how messed up it is, but no, let me guarantee you it's worse. And so now at this point I would go over like the original death of Gwen Stacy, but I'm pretty sure everybody knows that story. Like kids these days learn this story before they learn to read. But essentially the course of events, they play out the same way, with Gwen falling to her death and Peter attempting to save her, to where he then miscalculated, she broke her neck. And like we've talked about before, this is a huge pivotal moment for Peter Parker, because after Gwen Stacy's death, he would think things through to another level with not only how he used his webs, but also all the other devices that he would create after. But in this case, what Norman Osborn has done, he has essentially trapped Peter in a perpetual loop of this same instance happening over and over and over again, causing Peter to continually live in a state of pain, mourning, regret, and loss that would never come to an end. And for Norman Osborn, in a sick and twisted way, this was his masterpiece. This was his greatest creation. And when he shares this with his father tells him like, you're a monster. And Norman's just like, excuse me? Which just goes to show you like how beyond twisted he is. But as his father continues to go off, Norman just snaps his finger and he pretty much just turns his dad into like a yes man, to where from there his dad is just hugging him and like, oh, I'm so proud of you, son, which is also messed up because it's not genuine. But then on top of that, it's way over the top. And we see how bad it is when they return to the Throne City and all of the Dark Avengers are dead. And his dad is just like, did you do this, son? Good work. Like gold star for Normie. But also when he sees that Moonstone is dead, his dad is then like, well, sorry about your girlfriend, son. You're a great catch. You'll find another one. And with hearing it, Norman is just irked beyond measure. Like, dude, shut up. But then it's here we also find out who killed the Dark Avengers. And in a story like this, who else than Thanos? And mind you, at this point in time, with it being quote unquote Dark Reign / Siege, this is after the Infinity Saga. So when Thanos comes here, he's telling Norman to hand over the Infinity Gems, because even though he's able to wield them, he truly doesn't have any idea what he's using. And because of that, they're better suited in the hands of Thanos. But I also want you to keep in mind that this is OG Thanos, like still crazy powerful without the Infinity Gems Thanos. And with him coming here, Norman transforms into the Goblin King to go up against him. And as he transforms, his dad is just like, you tell him, I'm so proud of you, because he's still trapped in that good dad state. But with Norman going up against OG powerful Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet, like while they're fighting, Thanos tries to tell him that no amount of power will make people love you. And he knows this because prior to this point, he had all the gems, and even still, Mistress Death never loved him back. And even with Norman in his case using the gems to make his father love him, Thanos tells him that deep down inside, Norman knows it's a lie, and that eventually with time, Norman will get tired of this power. But in response, Norman expresses that the way that he sees it, that is not sentimental. And he admits, yeah, well maybe he'll get bored, but all he truly desires is the power. And with saying this, he effectively destroys Thanos. And even though Thanos was still OP, he still was going up against the Infinity Gauntlet. But after effectively destroying Thanos, his father comes up, puts his hand on his shoulder, and he tells Norman like, don't listen to him, I'll always love you, son. And when Norman asks him why, and his father responds, because you're my son, Norman then goes off because that's not what he wanted. But instead he wanted his father to love him because of all of his accomplishments. And out of pure anger, he erases his father from all time, space, and existence, effectively unmaking his own father from having ever existed within this universe. But with Norman deleting his father from all time and space, effectively this meant that Norman had never been born. And with him realizing what he has done, he's unable to undo it, because with him being nobody and now him literally being nothing, he no longer has command of the gauntlet, and as a result, he just fades out of existence. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support, and for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below to where you can go to patreon.com/DopeSpill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Just wanted to drop another what if along with the others that we've been doing lately, but I also just wanted to hear you guys' thoughts like on this one. So let me know down in the comments or over on Discord, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.